because of the absence of the external auditors. Members felt that since we are likely to touch on certain financial matters, it will be important for the external auditors to actually be present and take note of some of those concerns. And if need be, maybe volunteer to clarify issues where board and management fail to give the expected answers. Members, the question is put that having received the presentation of the activity report and financial statement of the Gambia Investment and Export Promotion Agency for the year ended 31st December 2017, 31st December 2018, and 31st December 2019, that this committee now consider the activity reports and financial statements so mentioned for adoption as the true and fair view of the state of play for the better or for the worse of the Gambia Investment and Export Promotion Agency, to enable us to present a report to the plenary with our recommendations. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those not in favor say no. And now the matter is before you for consideration. You may raise any issue.
I decided during the acceptance of questions. So, why can they answer those questions? You will ask questions.
All right, board management members do believe that since during the introductory remarks some cues were given to very important questions, they would want those questions to be addressed, and then we proceed with the consideration. Have you taken note of some of these key issues that were raised, and would you want to take them one by one, or would you want me to focus on each of them again for your consideration? Yes, go ahead, board chair.
Thank you very much. With your permission, I would like to attempt to give a summary of the issues you've raised, so my colleague will also have any issues that maybe are not captured, I would be more than happy if you can just remind us. But I have taken note of 7 issues that you have highlighted. Issue number 1, you raised the issue of sustainability of the institution beyond government subvention. This was a question you wanted answered, that if GAIPA has any roadmap or any efforts that it is deliberately undertaking to be able to sustain the institution beyond government subvention. That's number 1. Number 2, you inquired about the nature and character of the assets that GAIPA has. You wanted more clarity on those. You also took note of an area, number 3, about our property and equipment, and you wanted at least more explanation of what properties we have and what equipment we have. I think this was mentioned in one of, I think, this 2018 financial statements. Number 4, you also would like us to disaggregate the investments as per institutions, because we merely cataloged institutions in terms of and the investment areas, but they were lumped up. So you wanted us to disaggregate, so you are in a position to be able to find out exactly what each of the investment areas is bringing to 𝗂𝗂𝒃. Number 5, you also requested more information regarding the investment zones, the export investment and investment zones, and you also wanted more information regarding the special incentive certificates, the SICs, and you further wanted to know the impact of this on employment and also in terms of the incomes coming to 𝗂𝗃, the impact of the economic zones and the SICs. Number 6, I just paraphrase some of this. It may not necessarily be your. You wanted a correlation between businesses and export development vis-a-vis the types, volumes, etc., etc. And I'm asking us to provide a comparative analysis of such. You also wanted to find out the level of 𝗂𝗃's contribution in terms of the facilitation and advocacy we do. What's the level of contribution or its potential in terms of impacting businesses and investments? So you would like this to be demonstrated so that at least we know exactly what the impact is. Lastly, I think you also made mention of advocacy. In terms of our strategic focus, how much is the advocacy leveraging our attainment of our corporate mandate and objectives? These were the key areas that I've been able to record. And then, with your permission again, I would like to attempt to say something about the first concern, and then after which I can ask my colleagues to also intervene. With regards to the sustainability of 𝗂𝗃 beyond subvention, as you can see, this is a major challenge for the institution. Perennially, for the period that you have highlighted, from 2017 to 2019, we've seen a dwindling of the subvention from government. And the paradox is, whilst our incomes are dwindling, our challenges are increasing. And this has not been really helped by the global pandemic, because that has exacerbated our financial situation. But more significantly, I think you made adequate mention of 𝗂𝗃's role as mandated under the Act. However, at the operational level, what we have realized is that most of our potential areas of income and responsibility have been, unwittingly divested or taken by other institutions, which is undermining our ability to raise the necessary income. Some of our key responsibilities can be found under the Ministry of Finance, specifically GRA. Others are, I hate to say this, but some of our responsibilities are under the GCCI, which is a membership organization. It's not even a government institution. So our concerns are really that, and again, we are not blaming anybody. It might have been, perennial lack of due diligence or an attempt to really take control of what belongs to us. This could have emanated from maybe lapses within the management or the board in the past years, and our responsibilities and our potential being eroded and finding themselves in areas where they are not supposed to be. But that's the reality on the ground. So we feel if we are able to claw back and we are able to consolidate our mandate based on the Act, our potential for sustainability would greatly be enhanced. This would be by way of an overview that I would give. But then with regards to the specificities of the other issues, I think my colleagues, headed by the CEO, can take on those questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, CEO.
Yes, thank you, Chairman and honorable members. To start with, on the issue of sustainability, in 2020-2021, with the approval of the board and the ministry, we introduced a levy called the 𝗂𝗂 levy, which is 1% of the total value of investment. This, I think, in 2021, has netted us at least about $24 million in interest income in 2021. Now, on the issue of sustainability, as alluded to earlier by the chairman, we have what we conducted a study tour in the Sister Republic of Senegal, where we meet our counterparts, ASEPEX, EDFM, and APEX. And we also held discussions with our counterparts both in Nigeria and in Ghana. And what we have discovered is export promotion tools are embedded in these export promotion agencies. But in the Gambia, it's the reverse. We have, for example, the ISRT, which is embedded with the chamber, which we feel is wrong. And we have made representation both to our board, and we have aligned with the board, and we have made representation also to the ministry. We have also the ETLS, which is domiciled at the ministry. Which again,
the ISRT and the
yes.
Otherwise, they will not.
Okay, and then we also have the REX, which is embedded at the GRA.
She said, explain the terminology.
The terminology. Acronyms were ISRT.
ISR is the
Interstate Trade Transit.
Yes.
Interstate Trade Transit, ISR.
Yes, and the ETL.
Yeah, it's meant for goods that is transiting outside the country, between across regions. And the ETLS is Equal Trade Liberalization Scheme.
And the REX.
You know, it's your area of operation. So after a while,
yes,
the abbreviation dominates.
Absolutely.
And even the, so go ahead and give.
Yeah, I think, with your permission, Chairman, we've.
So this ISRT is it a levy of some sort?
Yes, it is. It is a fee that is charged for the facilitation. Yes, or a levy that is charged to the facilitation. Okay. But at the moment, as opposed to the dictates of the Act, it was given to the Chamber of Commerce, which we felt was.
It is a fee.
Yes.
Linked to trade.
Yeah, intertrade. That is between ECOWAS countries.
ECOWAS countries.
Yes.
So a fee is actually levied.
Yes.
And collected.
Yes.
Okay. And now the collection is done by who?
It's done by the Chamber of Commerce.
They do the direct collection?
Yes.
Okay.
And this, if you look at both in Senegal, Nigeria, and Ghana, is domiciled at the export promotion agencies that they had. Now, we also...
And in your discussion with the Chamber, what because they are not around, so if you can give us an idea, maybe we can...
No, I think it's not necessarily anything to do more or less with the chamber. It was a function that the ministry gave to the chamber. So for us, as far as we are concerned, the chamber has not much of relevance in this. It was
don't relegate them to irrelevance.
Yeah.
We must give them due
Absolutely.
consideration as an institution. You know, they are at the receiving end and they are not around. But make them relevant. Don't use the big stick that the ministry. So, have you ever had any contact with them to discuss this matter, and what are the
I think the chamber sits in our board, and when the ISR issue was tabled at the board, they were present, and they are fully aware of the steps we are making as an institution to claw back our mandate, so that not only will these tools give us, it's not necessarily about income.
You know now, you are not debating with anybody, you are giving us facts.
Yes.
So you are saying a fee is there, it's being collected by the chambers. You don't believe that there is any contradiction between the two institutions. It was a policy decision.
Yes.
And now you are dealing with the policy maker.
Absolutely.
To be able to address that. So
absolutely.
One issue.
Yes.
And that is your challenge. And how you intend to address it.
Yes.
Then the ETLS, ECOWAS trade liberalization. So that one is also a fee?
Yeah, that one is, there's a fee or levy on it, but it is also domiciled at the ministry. As
the Ministry of Finance?
No, Trade.
Ministry of Trade, okay.
Yes.
So they actually receive this one?
Whatever fees is charges.
The fees, okay. And have you followed the fees to know exactly how much is collected annually, or not yet?
No, we haven't done that, not yet.
Don't you think you need to establish a committee, ad hoc committee that will actually look into that to actually find out this?
Recently we engaged our minister on this, and he agrees, completely with all the.
How much do you approve? Do you know?
No. But
that's why we are saying.
Yes.
Don't you think? You need to form your ad hoc
committee.
Indeed, that will look into this game.
Sure.
And then show that this is what we are following and this is what we will get.
Absolutely. In fact, we are putting you on notice.
Yes.
That there is a big meeting coming up,
yes.
and we are moving in that direction.
Absolutely.
But I do not want us to limit our discussions only to how much revenue we get, but let us also consider the potential it can bring in terms of other things, institutional sustainability.
Yeah, because I wanted to add on not only the importance of the revenue perspective, but in terms of planning, because we as an export promotion institution.
But bear in mind that, as the board chair has said, the issue is sustainability here.
Yes.
So give us
the
fact about sustainability. How do you intend?
I think, if I can recall, we've already introduced an SIC levy. That is 1% of the value of investment that we will facilitate. That, as 2021 has bring in at least 25 million. Yes, for 2021. Now, what we are looking in terms of
24, you now give us 25.
No, 24 is okay. It's just rounded. 24 is okay.
Yeah, these are approximations.
Yeah, no, these are actuals. Yes.
Please know that we should have put you on the oath, so make sure that you give us the facts. Otherwise, just say that
we can say at least.
Send the document.
Yeah, that's okay.
At least 24.
No, that's understood, sir.
Don't be accurate if you feel that you have to rely on your brain, and then send us the facts.
Okay, actually, that's in order. Okay. Now, in terms of sustainability, what we feel also that. We've covered the area of investment, where we feel that if we have this additional levy we have introduced would help sustainability. We have also talked about the export tools. Now, the major one that we had here is to do with the enterprise. And what is happening with the enterprise is we have the mandate legally, but there's a problem we have, that it becomes every other ministry's and institution's activity. And this has staffed us resources for the entrepreneurs. For example, if I give you these projects, when you have projects like Roots or Giraffe coming, or all FastDev and all these projects, there's always an entrepreneurship component. And that component, unfortunately, is not being implemented by GIPA. Instead of GIPA as the institution mandated to carry out that mandate, being capacitized and given the fund to implement, so that there will be a sustainability after the end of the project's life cycle. Because we all know that these projects come 3-5 years, they disappear. Who takes over after the project? It would have been GIPA. So it would have been better if GIPA was capacitized and given the resources to implement those functions. That way, at the end of the project, GIPA will still continue. So that is an area that we have been hugely staffed of fund in terms of entrepreneurship development and funding. So this, we believe that we've already tabled with our line ministry, and I'll ask the chairman, we will send you an invitation for the committee to attend in our export stakeholders meeting, where we will discuss these tools with the exporters as well, and the chamber will be there. So this, we believe that if implemented by government, naturally the institution might not even require subvention from government. Now we move on to the assets. Here we are talking of assets. The properties are at the airport. In 2017-18, GIPA entered into an agreement with TAF Global Africa and that's why it's known as 𝗬𝗏. And a special purpose company was created called 𝗬𝗏, where we hold 35% and TAF holds 65%. As we speak, the project is stalled. We are trying to finalize on the lease because part of the agreement is 𝗬𝗏 was to provide an encompassed lease. And during the review of the lease document, there were some errors found on the original lease document or assignment between 𝗬𝗏 and the civil aviation. And as we speak, the two-line ministry, that is Works and Trade, are working to correct that. So once we correct that, that will kick in. And that is where we also have the property in. We have the land and the property. If you remember, those properties were built during the Trade Gateway project. And unfortunately, the ex-president used to use those facilities as the July 22nd park. Rents were due to 𝗬𝗏, but finally the rents has to be written off because there was no way of 𝗬𝗏 collecting rents those days. So if any of...
What's the current situation?
Now the current situation is the properties are not occupied. We are not accruing any income from them. But like I said earlier, we had an agreement with TAF Africa Global. We created a company called the 𝗬𝗏. So because of the issues with the lease, which we are finalizing, and we believe that once that is finalized, this $300 million investment that we were alluding to earlier to create the light manufacturing and the business park would kick in.
Yes, you may have noticed there was some development on the airport fence some 1 year or so ago. And if you,
I'm sure the members will
yes,
visit the place.
yes, and if you drive into also, you will see a chain link fence within the airport itself with TAF's 𝗬𝗏. So this project was really conceived, and it was going to be very, very impactful on 𝗬𝗏's sustainability. However, as he said, it's stalled.
How long ago?
𝗬𝗏 is called.
No, how long ago did you?
I think we started this process from 4 years ago,
Yes.
so
2018.
2018,
yes.
but it got stalled around
2020.
2020.
Yes.
And again, one useful lesson also we should learn from that. As he said, part of this property, which is a 350 hectares?
Yeah.
No, 150 hectares.
160, well, there's a
168.
153, we
Yes.
don't know, but it's about 150 hectares of land, and the value of investment is 300 million. There's a developed property already. Currently, 𝗬𝗏's rent is unsustainable. Where we are right now, every year the landlord increases, and I think the last year it was 500,000.
600,000.
600. Now the landlord has increased it to $1 million. There's already a property developed on that particular piece of land, which is more than enough to house the entire 𝗬𝗏. But because of these challenges, we are unable to move in. So these are all the things that are affecting our ability to sustain ourselves as going concerns.
So you are proposing that in fact it's better to move
Yes,
move in there,
absolutely.
absolutely, yes.
occupy the property.
Yes.
Yeah.
And if that investment goes to 35% of $300 million investment, as he said, perhaps with that we do not even need Gambia government's investment. Subvention, sorry.
Thank you, Chairman.
I think the member has a question.
He said,
Yes.
4 years down the line now.
Yes.
What level are you at now? It's 4 years now. And also, I have seen that this 𝗬𝗏 is between the perimeters of the airport.
Yes, yes.
So I wonder who owns that land for? Is it the airport or 𝗬𝗏? Or you, the 𝗬𝗏 owns it up? Because I've seen the contract, we say 35% for 𝗬𝗏 and 60% for TAF. But I have not seen anything about the airport.
Well, this was supposed to be an economic zone. It's identified within the airport. Well, I don't know now. I think legally, the airport is the property of whatever, DCAA. However, government demarcated this area as an economic zone, and it was developed with funds from, I think, 4.5 hectares of it, Mr. So, has been developed with UNDP funds, and that's what the CEO is making reference to. This was the part that the July 22nd park was based. The undeveloped part is the place where we want to now develop together with TAF to make it an economic zone. And he was going to bring in 100% of the equity, financial equity, and then the land would have been our own share of the equity. Yeah. But like I said, administratively there has been all these problems of, because I think the original lease was in the name of 𝗲𝗬𝗄𝒽, and now 𝗲𝗬𝗄𝒽 has been succeeded by 𝗲𝗬𝗄𝒽. So we had those sort of little legal issues which we are trying to pass out.
It's called J27.
Yes. J27 is part of this land. What is the developed part of the land? There are warehouses which J27 was using for manufacture, for gold, processing gold dust. So many things were happening in economic activities. And I recall, I think one of the problems we had was there was a land rent of 25 million which accrued over time. And 𝗲𝗬𝗄𝒽 was expected to have paid that. But we didn't have custody of the place over that period. So there are a lot of controversies. But as he said, the two ministers have now come together, and it's likely that we will overcome the challenge of the legal how is it called, lease. And once that is thrashed out, we expect the project to take off, because TAF is ready and it's mobilizing resources for us to undertake this particular thing. So we created a company, a special purpose vehicle called 𝗲𝗬𝗄𝒽, which means 𝗲𝗬𝗄 and TAF together, 𝗲𝗬𝗄. So that's the name of the company, and that company is going to be now the entity that will run the business on behalf of Gambia government and TAF.
You already have your memorandum of understanding.
Yes.
All that we have.
Of course we do.
You should give us a copy of that. I believe we accompany, because what you are saying is very critical. A dispensation where law is not regarded, then of course you can do many things.
Absolutely.
But where law matters, then ownership matters. Legalities matter, because anybody can go to the courts in search of one's due rights. So you talk about the land enclosed somewhere. Who really owns the land? And how did 𝗲𝗬𝗄𝒽 come to own land, and is now going to be the shareholder, and its equity is going to be land. So, that land then becomes 𝗲𝗬𝗄𝒽's really lifeblood.
Absolutely.
So it means that if anything happens to that land, then 𝗲𝗬𝗄𝒽's investment becomes
Yes, I think I want to respond to Honorable. In 2000, there was a project called the Trade Gateway Project. That Trade Gateway Project identifies some areas of the airport and some part of Bond Road, and I think even Sukuta, where this place is, as economic zones. This Trade Gateway Project led to the creation of 𝗲𝗬𝗄𝒽. So government, through civil aviation, assigned the purported land measuring about 168 hectares to the then 𝗲𝗬𝗄𝒽. So that is how we took ownership or possession of that land from the civil aviation. There's actually an existing legally executed assignment between civil aviation and 𝗲𝗬𝗄𝒽.
You can give us a copy of that.
Absolutely, we can provide that to you. Absolutely.
We can provide you the copy of that. We can provide you the MOU. We can provide you the joint venture agreement.
Absolutely.
These three documents are all available.
So what we have done is, because government started the project through the World Bank, all the EIA and every assessment was done, some structures were built. We felt that as an institution we cannot raise all the necessary capital. So we had a partnership where we will use our land as equity, as our contribution, and we bring in a private investor who will provide the funding to build all these facilities. And the agreement is lasting for about 40 years, after which the whole thing reverts back to GAIPA as an institution.
Any further?
Yes, I think as you mentioned, the land is owned by GAIPA.
Yes.
GAIPA.
Yes.
And that is owned as a private
investor, yes. Yes.
You said the land was owned by Gibson.
But now, guys, because in the act,
all the legalities.
Yes, it's being worked out. Yes, that's the only.
It was all those legalities.
Of course.
Yes. Now my concern here is about the percentages.
Yes.
Only what which is the lifeblood and which is the most important. But I've seen 35%, 65% by tough.
Yes.
So do you have a method that you use to? Why is it 35, 65? Because to me, the land is more important. It's owned by you.
Absolutely.
The land has a residual lifespan of 68 years at the time we were contracting this, because the lease is for 99 years. When we signed the contract with TAF, I think we had a residual lifetime of about 60-something years. Okay, maybe the details we didn't tell you, but I think I mentioned in passing that part of the land has been fully developed with the UNDP project, part undeveloped. 4.5 hectares have been developed and 100 and something plus undeveloped. So during our negotiations, when we established a joint venture, we agreed on what percentage of the revenue should come as part of the developed part and also as part of the undeveloped part. So all these things are in the JV, and when we provide you the joint venture agreement, you will see the details there.
So the complete details
will be in the JV, yes.
Absolutely,
yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But the developed part now belongs to GAIPA.
Yes.
Yes.
And that's the developed part that you want to occupy.
Yeah. And the undeveloped together.
I mean, in terms of
there's a building on the developed side.
Yes. Is there,
yes.
yeah. We should occupy.
Yes.
Exactly.
To serve as an office.
Yes.
Yes.
And you've been trying to push that as an agenda. What is the obstacle? What is the constraint? Why are you going to pay another million when you could just...
Yes. In fact,
I think we, if you look at the park, there's a building that was through the same project, the Trade Gateway project. There was a building that was built for GAMTEL, which they are not using. So we are in negotiation with GAMTEL to take full ownership of the building, renovate it, and move there as our head office.
So this is concrete. You are no longer engaged in planning. It is concrete.
Yes, it is. Yes, we are going to do that. Yes, we've already secured the board approval to move out. So what we are trying to do now is getting access to the site, get it renovated, bring it to use, and then we will move in.
Okay, so how long do you think that will be?
We're thinking that before the end of this year we will move.
Okay. You will not pay another 1 million?
Well, in fact, as the board, we told them to move in within 3 months. Yeah. So, well, maybe that's not practical for them. But the building is solid. If we put it, yes. We didn't want to pay another rent of $1 million.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so.
Okay, any more, or they continue? Continue with the other element.
Yes, just clarification on the ETLS.
Yes.
Sorry, Andy?
ETLS.
Oh, okay.
The post-trade liberalization scheme. We're speaking about levy. Is it a levy-connected activity or not?
No. As far as the ETLS is concerned, we know it's at the ministry. They may charge a fee, not necessarily a levy. The levy is called the ECOWAS levy. That is totally separate. Again, that one is another thing that we could have access to, because already there is an ECOWAS levy in place, which has been approved by the National Assembly. And we believe that the whole idea of an ECOWAS levy is to promote trade within ECOWAS. But as we speak, GAIPA has not been able to access that fund. That is different from the ETLS. It's just like the certificate of origin. There is always a fee that you charge to issue those documents. But the levy is not the ETLS. The levy I talked about earlier was on the SIC.
Okay, you'll be able to give us all the details of the different fees and levies that you should leverage.
Yes.
But by virtue of the policy, foreign policy, you are unable to do so.
Absolutely.
Make sure that you prepare.
Okay.
And give us those facts.
You mentioned that any project you have, there is a component for entrepreneurship.
Yes.
I think.
Absolutely. You're absolutely right. Yes.
But also, you mentioned that the entrepreneurship was not implemented by government.
Absolutely.
Is implemented by government?
I think mostly you have both for FASDEP and others, they always have their project coordinating unit who will employ parallel staff, and this parallel staff will implement it. But normally what happens is after the life cycle of the project, there is nobody to follow up. And we believe that since we've been given the national mandate to promote and develop entrepreneurship in the Gambia, we should have been empowered, capacitized to implement, so that after the life cycle of the project, there is sustainability. Because all these PCUs that are they creating, they die down after the project. We saw all projects doing marching ground. But today, if you go to the ground, whether it's FASDEP or NEMA, what you will realize is hardly you will find any of those projects functioning. So imagine if GAIPA as an institution signed those marching ground, or GAIPA was capacitized to implement, by now we would have got a continuation, because sustainability is an issue. So we've been working with GIRAF, that's a new project in agriculture, and we intended to do the same thing with roots, to tell them that components that belong to entrepreneurship, there's already a government agency created for this purpose. It should be capacitized, not done in parallel. Because the way we see it is like, before the advent of the project, we are mandated to carry out entrepreneurship. When government borrow and bring in money, they create an institution. When the money finishes, they disappear. Then people are expecting us to come back and do the entrepreneurship. And here we are saying that now, we should be capacitized. The part of the implementation, so that at the end of the project cycle, there is proper handing over and continuity.
Because my problem is on this sustainability we're talking about.
Absolutely.
Because as an institution, a government institution,
yes,
is solely responsible for training entrepreneurship.
Absolutely.
If, as you say, if you are given the power and the money,
yes,
I think it's better.
Yes.
Then you can, after you can, because we have seen all this stuff, after they face out, you can see
yeah, absolutely.
So how do you think they can help you? Because we have to help you. Because it's what can. How do you think the committee can help you so that all these projects, we are implementing them at the system?
I have two practical suggestions. One, as far as GAIPA is concerned, I think we need to intensify our own advocacy. We need to intensify our own advocacy. That's at the level of the institution. But at the level of the NA, National Assembly, I think this is where, before you ratify loans, components that have a direct bearing on investment and entrepreneurship, you can, at the level before the ratification, insist that those components be given to GAIPA or executed in collaboration with GAIPA. Because as a National Assembly, you have the powers. Before all these loans are ratified, if you insist on those components, the donors will comply. But if the loans have already been executed, then everybody wants, this is my turf, I'm not giving it to GAIPA. So those are the two practical suggestions that I have in terms of really helping us, empowering us.
Yes, I believe the advocacy is the leading work that ought to be done. And hopefully the report we give will guide the minister when it comes to contracting loans. Because usually when they sign with their partners, then you either reject it or you accept it in total. So that is where the problem lies. So it means that we must work very hard now with this report and assist us to get all the facts so that this report would be instructive, that when something is being done, these are the benchmarks that must be reflected in each of the agreements. They will use that as a template. So work out on something and then make sure that we get it and then review it, and that becomes a template in terms of agreements that the government emphasizes. Those are the ways that we improve the situation.
Okay.
Because the National Assembly rightly can also come up with its own criteria of how to get government to come up with international agreements. So if we can come up with benchmarks that we know that these are invariable, this should be, then we can transform them into templates, and that template will now guide whoever goes into negotiate agreements. Well, we are moving, so can we go to the next concern? Well, we should not dwell on just one. That is now sustainability, that's where we are stuck.
Yes.
So do you have, can we be concrete now? Anything on sustainability? Not theory, but...
I think, to be honest, Chairman, with what we have talked about, if it is implemented, we as an institution will not have a sustainability issue.
Okay. Can we go to the next element? Yeah, go ahead to the next element.
Yes, on the next element, we've talked about the information on the economic zones. As an institution, towards the tail end of 2020, we have embarked on working with the Ministry of Trade and also with support from the Ministry of Land. We are trying to acquire sites in all the 5 regions of the country. Currently, as we speak, we have tentatively have three sites in LRR, 2 are towards the border, the Casamance border, and one is immediately from Kiang before you reach the river, and the other one where the ferryway in bridges. We've already launched that in partnership with the EU. We are running an economic zone at Soma, which is going to be about a $48 million project. This has already been approved and is being implemented as we go, as we speak now, because the fencing is already done. They're working on finalizing the plans. This will host storage. It's going to be an agri platform where we'll have storage, processing facilities for agricultural produce. Because we believe that the post-harvest loss in this country is too much, and having a processing plant and storage plant in that area will capture the catchment area within those surroundings, and it also add value in providing employment and economic benefit to the communities. Another area that we just secured recently is towards the tail end of North Bank. We are working already. We are going to establish an entrepreneurship center at the North Bank. Now, moving on the SIC. SIC is an incentive scheme that we operate as GAIPA. We basically act as the secretariat because there's an incentive committee which is headed by the Permanent Secretary Trade, Permanent Secretary Finance, GRA Commissioner General, and GAIPA as member. These are the group that reviews the applications and once approved, they forward their recommendations to the Honorable Minister for signing. Now, of late, we could see the impact that SIC has. It has enabled us to, despite the COVID, we focus on domestic investors. We've already this is iron rod producing company that is located, Kitty, that is already in operational. We have an agricultural farm that is producing onions and lettuce, onions and potatoes in Fonyi. We have the banana plantation in CRR. So all these projects, what we look at is we look at the value of the investment, we look at the number of jobs that is going to be created, and we also look at ensure that they have an EI, environmental impact analysis, to make sure that they do not do any harm to the...
Our point is that, yes, good explanation, but in terms of information, we want you to link those projects with export projects and then give us what is the scale that you are actually handling locally. We say roads. Yeah. How much are we importing?
Yes.
And how much are you producing? So that we can see that there is a strategy that leads you to less import of those roads because you are producing.
Absolutely.
Not only that, we are saying, because that's import subsidy. Now, the export, are you exporting? We want to see those institutions that are exporting, and you said, well, this is their export quota this year, so that we know whether they are progressing. Every year you look at a particular institution, you see that this year they've exported this, next year they've increased, the year after that they've increased. Then you see the special investment certificate really impacting on, the development of that institution, but also development of the local economy, development of employment. We want you to make those correlations, and it becomes in a report form so that we can concretely see. I think you understand that.
Yes, I think we understand that very well, Chairman. And part of our reasons why we were talking about export tool is that because at the moment, none of the export tools are domiciled in 𝗂𝗂. And this has contributed to us being unable to get export data. I will give an example. When we visited our counterpart in 𝗂𝗂𝗃 in Senegal, they got real-time information as to the number of exports leaving Senegal, where the trucks are stuck. They can tell you cashew, any product, the quantity and the value. And this is part of our advocacy to recovering all the export tools in 𝗂𝗂, because at a button, we will be in a position to know this is the number of certificate of origins we issued today, this is the type of product, ETLS, ISRT, we will know all the movements and we could provide real-time information. In terms of, we will go back and try to engage the license holders, and they will be able to provide us as to information vis-a-vis what they're exporting. But part of our strategy has also been, we look at the flour mills, which we have supported, and they have one way or help in the availability of flour, as well as in the pricing. But however, during our interactions with them, we also realized two commodities, that is maize and wheat. And we've already engaged agriculture because the value of maize being imported into this country is too much. And this we realize is a crop that is grown in this country, because all these factories in the animal feeds, they're importing maize overseas to bring in the maize that is being used to produce the animal feeds. So what we are saying now is, together with, we try to encourage agriculture to provide support, and so that we have a service level agreement between the factories and the farmers that are producing it, so that if they support them, they will produce the maize, and these people will actually be the off-takers. Because we believe that we did a visit in Brazil in 6 months ago, and what we learned in Brazil was we have the same tropics, we have the same type of land, and whatever is grown in Brazil can be grown here. And we feel that Parliament or government will have to help us with the land tenure system, because this is another area that we're having challenges. What we have is the availability of agricultural land to investors. Because if that is the land tenure system is also addressed, then both maize and wheat will not be a problem, because as we speak, we have businesses that are ready to go into production, but unfortunately, land is not available. Now, in terms of the advocacy, I think if I move to the level of advocating.
Sorry, Mr. Chairman, I just wanted him to also highlight how the change that this 𝗍𝗂 has also brought to our liquidity. Because he has said those things that are outside our control, but there are those that are within our control. When investments come, we know what kind of investments come, we know the value. I think the threshold is $250,000 US.
Exactly, yes.
And a company, before you enjoy 𝗍𝗂, you must invest a minimum of $250,000. And you must also be able to create a certain number of jobs for the country. Those are all conditions precedent to issuance of 𝗍𝗂. And he also made mention of the fact that we have increased the percentage, which was a one-off.
Yes.
It was a one-off 1%, is it?
No, what you used to charge was $1,000.
$1,000. And
but now we have abolished that. We're charging 1%
of your
of the investment value.
Which is really helping us. It has really changed the. I think I'm not sure, but I think in the report we highlighted how much we've made in the past year or so. Yeah. Because the $1,000, if people come here and invest, and they have an incentive certificate for 5 years, $1,000 one-off is peanuts.
Absolutely.
So we decided now, the board, as a board, we decided it to be 1% of the investment, and definitely that has turned around our
fortunes, yeah.
Our fortunes, yeah.
How did you come to the 1%?
Yes, we went through the act.
Have you done some comparative studies with other jurisdictions and see
yes, we look
what
at
they do in terms of such a levy, or would you want to undertake that and see, because just as he has highlighted, you are giving a special investment certificate to somebody who will be free from paying for 5 years.
Yeah.
So if you look at how much that person is going to accumulate from that, and comparatively helping people to survive in order to facilitate greater export promotion, greater investment, well, it should be a judicious thing to pursue in giving those certificates. So what is the judicious percentage to actually pay? I think it needs to be studied on the taking, both through comparative analysis, but also through studying the mind, brain work of the investor to see what the investor would believe is just. We should not just leave these things, as you said, to be stagnant.
Yes.
Since you are talking about survival and sustainability.
Yeah. Mr. So, didn't we do a comparative analysis between here and Diamniadio, Senegal?
Yes, we did. Thank you, Arun. Coming up with revenue scheme, revenue stream for the agency to address the issue of sustainability. We looked within our acts to see what we are permitted to do. And we made several recommendations to the board. The board accepted it and approved it, hence the 1% charge. And there are other areas, revenue streams, that the board also approved, which we haven't activated because we wanted to do it in a step approach rather than putting all these charges in one go. The 1% looking nationally here, you find
the question, the board approved because you convinced the board that this thing should be implemented.
Yeah.
But you are saying that, well, there is...
No, I think what has been approved.
We are looking at governance now. You tell the board to do something, it does it, and then you don't have to...
Staggering the implementation.
Help us to understand.
Yes, we did a board paper and presented to the board as to areas of revenue that can be generated for the agency, which we did. As for policy guidance, they approved some of these, and the implementation is staggered so that it's not too impactful to the investors at one go. One of the elements that's been activated is the 1%. Looking at the 1% nationally, because you asked for on what basis.
Know that you are helping us to understand your challenges. Now, what is staggering? Can you give concretely something that you should implement but you cannot implement because the investor will be discouraged? It will disrupt the business environment, because that's also your role to promote the business environment. Can you give us an example? If you cannot remember, that's okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
We are trying to understand what the challenges truly are. Go ahead. You are still
okay, sorry. What we mean staggering is that this is the first time we are doing such charges. Rather than coming up with the various areas that have been recommended, I think the board's consideration is like holding one of the revenue generation scheme, just as the tax reduction, from 31% to what it is now, 20%, has been done in a staggered way. To just being sensitive to the investors. Now, the question that's been asked, the 1%, what is it based on? We looked at nationally and internationally. Nationally here, if you look at it, a lot of the levies are within the range of 2% to 0.5% range. So we choose 1%. If you look at other institutions like GT Board, for instance, are charging, at first I think it was 10%, now 5% of a similar nature. So we've been very sensitive to that, and then we decided to take the lower level of charging 1% of the investment that's been planned. And if you look at the institutions like the National Environment Agency, they are charging 1% of the investments for national environment issues. So nationally, we are within range in terms of percentages. Internationally, if you look at it, normally facilitation fees tends to be at that 1% range, 2 to 0.5% range. If you look at banks, when they're facilitating the transfer of funds or beyond borders, tends to be within that 1% range. So we decided that we can start with this, and as our economy becomes competitive, then we can revise these figures, because you have to measure it with how competitive your economy is.
I hope that you'll be able to give us what you recommend for the board in terms of sustainability, so that we can also look into them.
And may I also say, internationally, if you look at the Republic of Ireland, their legislators made the decision to charge, to take 1% of the government budget revenue generated and devote it to investment promotion and facilitations. So this is examples nationally and internationally, and it is very crucial to the sustainability of 𝗂𝗂𝗽𝗂. When you read our mandate, it's always nice to hear it over and over again, but it reinforces that 𝗂𝗂𝗽𝗂 is the only institutions across government where the expectation is higher to propel economic growth and development. And that cannot be done in the absence of resources. We've seen other countries that have done it very successfully, and none of them depend on government subvention because it's expensive. But the agency is in a position to generate its own revenue, whereas other institutions may not have that latitude. An investment promotion agency have enough latitude to generate all the resources they need to undertake economic growth, as Ireland has demonstrated. And today it's called a miracle. But they've devoted that 1%. It tends to be more in certain years, but 1% is dedicated. And thank God, there's been a foresight in the development of 𝗂𝗂𝗽𝗂, where our funds, the funds are appropriated from the National Assembly as stated in the Act. And we need to see the full implementations of that rather than us having to debate our budget through ministries. Thank you.
Yes, on that issue. Yeah, he was highlighted. Yeah, 1%. You want to raise it? Yeah, I say I just want to hear from the auditors. Well, you want to drag the auditors into the conversation, unless you have the auditors report, because I've seen that on property, plant, and equipment, they were raising this issue of building and saying that cost as per fixed assets register, 76 million for building, 42,442 what they cost. As per trial balance, 83,604,73. I think the auditors are trying to ensure that there is fixed assets register and that there is proper reconciliation on a continuous basis in order to protect the assets, you know, because I think so. You've seen you accepted that, you know, that was already accepted, and I think you are acting on it now, from the comments that we have seen, that you are not going to take your asset registers lightly in order to protect them from unnecessary depreciation, it seems. So you, in terms of the issue of sustainability, well, auditors, you are free. We don't want to drag you into.
Thank you very much. I didn't want to be drawn, as you rightly mentioned, but I just want to make something clear. The 1% or minimum levy has got its advantages and disadvantages. It is money you're getting with very little effort. That's one. But on the other side, if the organization, I'm not saying it isn't, if it's not efficient, the 1% will not come in when it's supposed to be. So it has to be a system whereby from application, everybody is quite clear as to the milestones that will be achieved and within what time frame the applications will be determined. Meaning, a would-be investor goes to 𝗂𝗏 today. They should be able to tell that within 2 weeks, within a month, within 3 weeks, within 4 months, everything will be done and dusted. If that's not the case, even with the 1%, the investment will not flow in on time. In summary, I'm saying, Mr. Chairman, I'm not passing judgment on the organization. I'm saying the minimum levy is perhaps a means to an end, not an end in itself. So the organization has to be rooted in terms of proper governance, accountability, probity, and all the measures. Timely recording, timely reporting, providing the information. I think those are challenges the organization has. So even if it collects the 1%, how soon will that 1% be accountable and brought to this August budget? So I think the bedrock, first of all, has to be efficiency and transparency. So no two investors will feel that when I darken the doors of 𝗂𝗏, this is what I'm going to get. They should be unequivocal. They should be very clear as to what they'll achieve, given that they provide all the documents. That's just a passing.
Well, thank you very much. I think the essence, as I rightly said, we do not want to draw auditors into such an inquiry per se, because they have already done theirs and they know the nature of the institution. But one thing that is very important is how to ensure that your receivables are received when they are supposed to be received, and that you do not come and say that, well, you still have them outstanding year in, year out. I think that is really what is clear now, that the machinery must be there for efficient collection of revenue or income, in order to ensure that there is better performance. There, what you may.
I had my hand up just before he came. It's like it hit my mind.
Yes.
There was an issue that maybe we forgot to
mention
when we talked about our sustainability.
Go ahead.
And you know, I think he's perfectly right that, like the saying of so much is given, what is expected. We have had challenges in the past few years also with regards to attrition, and that again points. I mean, is based on the level of subvention we receive from the government. We've had a number of our senior staff leaving. Sometimes when there are vacancies, we advertise. It's difficult to even have the right caliber of people, both the caliber and of course the numbers. So that has been a major challenge. It is too soon for us to measure the impact of the 1% increase, but it is the view of the board, and I think with what has been demonstrated this year or the past year, I think we should be able to address that bottleneck that he's talking about. That was the real problem. Investors will bring in their applications, and then there used to be a backlog, and of course that affected investor confidence and motivation. But I can assure you that things have now changed for the better, and we will see that addressed as we go along.
Yes, well, you know the importance. Let's look at page 14 of the just to focus on 14th of the 2019 management plan. Okay, and it's saying
Not accounts.
Oh, okay.
So it's saying 8.1, we observe that the fixed assets register is not comprehensive since information such as the assets, locations, employees, assigned, and identification codes were not indicated in the register. Additionally, we noted that most of the assets were not physically tagged with unique identification number, and according to them, still not resolved. This was 14 December 2018. So I hope it is now resolved. Inadequate insurance cover. That we noted the building and furniture and fittings were heavily underinsured against fire and allied perils and burglary. The sum insured was, and it mentioned the sum, 9.4 million, etc., when one is dealing with 110 million. So those are issues that they say still not resolved. So I guess what we are pointing at is for GAIPA as the key guide for investment to really put its house in order also in all aspects, especially the assets that it is going to rely on for its sustainability. Those ones should be guarded like the apple of its eye. Well, board, there is a member of your team that is raising hand. Yes, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Chairman. On the question of sustainability for the institution, what is really critical here, and I think it's been proposed by my chairman, is the issue of our mandates being executed or implemented by all agencies. This is a problem that has cut across in many areas, and I'd like to make a suggestion if I will be allowed to make that, and that is that we have a very important platform where these can be addressed, and it's the 𝒂𝒘𝒘 here. Institutions that comes to report here.
The enterprise committee now, before it was 𝒂𝒃, was we separated, and now the Finance and Public Account Committee is on its own, and Public Enterprise Committee is on its own. So
yes.
Public Enterprise Committee.
Thank you. And the suggestion is that when institution presents their report here, questions or scrutiny needs to be made as to their activities, whether it aligns with their mandate. And where, thank you very much. And there is also discussions around regarding the agency itself, as we are an agency at the moment, needs to look into whether we can be elevated to a commission or authority, whether that can really help us undertake and deliver the expectations on the mandate that the institutions is currently shouldering. In legislative reform. Currently, the GAIPA Act is under review, and I'm sure during our deliberations we will try and make sure the National Assembly is part of the process.
Yes, you know you are giving us information now. We can form part of our recommendation. Our recommendation will guide the National Assembly members in scrutinizing any legislation that will come. So,
yeah, you mentioned about benchmarking as well, the institutions with internationally. My CEO mentioned the benchmarking exercise they've done in Senegal. We've seen that there is a lot that we can also elevate ourselves. A lot of studies been done in places like Rwanda and the like,
And I think the technical experts that are here also are well aware of what's happening in the region, in the sub-region, the new generation that we are in, particularly post-pandemic, what the agency needs to do.
You are guiding us to move into the new generation. All you need to tell us is what should we do?
The repositioning of GAIPA needs to be looked into.
So we need a new...
We are currently reviewing the legislation.
So you are saying that there is need for legislative reform?
Yeah, for sustainability issues.
Yeah. And I think it will be useful to, whatever you have, invite you to make sure that you submit that to us so that it will form part of our recommendation.
Yeah.
It will facilitate your work.
And one last point, just to mention, we've been having a lot of deliberations between Minister of Finance, IMF, GRA, regarding the institutions and the investment incentives that we're issuing. And I think if the institution is deprived of using physical means to incentivize investment, I think it will really, in my opinion, jeopardize the
You think there is a move towards that direction?
discussions are being underway.
No, that's not already been settled.
Okay, thank you.
No, that's settled because it was those challenges we had, so together with the ministry,
As long as you don't, they are not telling us.
No, thank you.
So can you?
Yes, I wanted to respond to the auditor's observation regarding the fixed asset register and the insurance. I think both.
Also, in 2 minutes, because others are going to come in this room.
Yes.
So
I think both are being addressed as we speak now, and we will ensure that a detailed fixed asset register is provided. That will also capture not only the assets, their location and category as well. And in addition, we will look at the insurance cover as well to ensure that these assets that we purportedly had will be covered as well. So these are things that, be rest assured, will not appear again.
Thank you very much. You see, auditors, what we do here, so we make sure that they don't appear again. So now we've got a strong promise of some of the things that appear.
Chairman, quickly with your
members?
quickly with your blessing, just in response to the word the editors raised, we have now outlined if your application is in order, within 3 months your SIC will be processed. Where if you submit within a week, we will give you a reply to tell you if you have any missing outstanding document. And in 2021 and the latter part of 2020, we do not have any backlog. As we speak, there is no backlog pending for SIC applications. This 1% is...
You will manage management, you will have the opportunity, because of our late start,
yes.
we will have to continue tomorrow to be able to finish with management. So the idea is we continue 11 o'clock tomorrow, to finish our business.
Okay.
And we will be able to continue.
Okay.
I know that the process now is just getting details from you, so that it will form part of our record.
We will do that.
And whatever you believe we should use or recommend, make sure that those salient points are put across.
Absolutely.
And then we will not spend much time in finishing business tomorrow.
Absolutely.
So members,
just in case.
Chairman.
You know that your payrolls will be attached to your report.
Okay, we'll provide the technical payroll. We just wanted to seek clarification. I think the auditor is asking whether he will be required tomorrow.
Well, auditor has been very experienced in our business. I think they've always been with us in podcast. You don't appear like they are summoning you. Very friendly.
It's a partnership, right?
But it's a partnership that we should continue.
Yes.
We hope that we will continue the partnership tomorrow.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you.
Members, can you move for adjournment? Yes. This move that we adjourn until tomorrow 11 o'clock to complete. Thank you. It is moved and seconded that we adjourn until 11 o'clock tomorrow to continue and complete business. Thank you very much, board. Those in favor say aye. Yeah, those in favor. So the ayes have it, so we'll adjourn until tomorrow 11. And please let's form on time so that we can save time and move out of here as early as possible. Thank you very much. Thank you. Auditor, thank you for your cooperation. Yes, thank you.